solid and acclimated to where you need to be, how do you incorporate your life as a parent within all this?
So this is where my husband and I are trying to break the mold. It is not easy. So we just acquired a company that we are really passionate about, and we're going to be building it with our kids.
Okay.
What does that mean? Well, in the summer, we didn't get a nanny. We kept all our kids at home, and we're building our business with our kids involved. And, I mean, they're young. There's limited what they could do, but they help us pack our orders. We had to send some products to Miss America contestants. So my kids, helped me pack them and ship them. Mm-hmm. So we feel we are trying to teach a new model of business building with the entire family involved. And that's where I feel there is significant power, because we're teaching our kids entrepreneurship at the ages of 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
And that's what we want them to see. It's like you don't have to have office hours and life hours separate. You can integrate them. It definitely takes commitment, and it takes a new way of thinking and new habits. But that's what we're working on now, and we haven't done this before. We've built businesses without our kids involved. But this brings us big passion, and I think this is becoming more and more next 5 years.
Well, I know we just did a lemonade stand with my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old, and they had they're making about $50 an hour. So I think I'm in the wrong business.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But I think you're right. I think there is some new trends in showing kids entrepreneurship. It's the modern day paper route, because a lot of us had paper routes as kids. And I think it's thrilling to watch them understand the concept of conducting business and currency. I promised my daughter I'd take her to Target yesterday, and she knew exactly how much money she had and what she could go buy with that. I was amazed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And my kids they call it homework. Like when we're working on the company, they call it homework, which I think is cute. But they're so fascinated, and they're seeing tangible products, and they're, learning why we're making them. And they ask the most amazing questions that actually help you in business, because they simply bring it down to the simple questions of why and what is it and how do you explain it, and when you bring it down to that level, really it brings out creativity.
I think we could all do ourselves a service by listening more often to anybody that has a voice, because everybody brings value in the discussion if we just took the time to listen to them, especially from our kids.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious, maybe more selfishly, but how do you structure your day? Just before our call, I was making tents in the living room for my girls to keep them happy while I knew I was going to be on the call. But how do you structure your day? Obviously, you're very busy and you've got a successful business. What do you do?
So I would say that the way that I work now, I used to kind of have my list and do it very traditionally, and I've shifted that now to the 3 key things that need to get done in a day. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily focus as much on time as I used to. I used to block time, whereas now it's more energetically focusing my day. So I focus more on energetics. So I'll have 3 goals of the day. But I'm not as focused on what time it has to get done. It's more at the end of the day, what's most important. So I work more on prioritizing what has to get done. And though I think that's a skill that I developed to be able to do that really fast from my corporate life. Very quickly I can filter what can be done later, what has to be done today. I don't check emails very much. I focus my attention on the 3 main revenue drivers of my business, and then social media and emails are kind of not the biggest priority, so I'll do that, if I have a few minutes in the evening. I do a lot more with my phone, so like I use Zoom to do webinars right off my phone. We were at the cottage last week, and I wrote a business plan, did some work with investors, and had webinars all from my phone at my cottage while my kids were swimming with my husband. So that's it's more about integration for me and how to teach people to have that holistic way of building business.
Yeah.
And I feel that there's a shift away from the looking at time and more about making sure the right things get done and not taking 5 hours to get something done that should take 3 minutes.
Sure. I think we tend to drag things out. Do you think with that schedule, and I have a very similar schedule to that, I know when I get off this call, I'm going to be making rounds of chocolate milk and lunch, whatever. But do you find that you're giving fair enough attention to both your business and your personal life? Are you present in the moment when you need to be?
That's a really good question. That's a key focus for me, because I have felt that connection, that present connection, has been lacking. And the one thing my husband always says is like, you did have 3 kids in a row and they're really little and you got to give yourself some slack. But I do put my family first. Mm-hmm. However, they do start school next week. So what we kind of do is we'll plan out our year and we look at, when they're going to be with us and when they're going to be in school. And we're much more productive during the part of the year when they're in school. That's when we are like in action. We're also much more respectful of the time we have when they're at school.
Yeah.
So when they go back to school on Tuesday, it's all revenue. It's all, productivity. We don't really use our phones when, like, if we're out or we're with our kids, we don't pop our phones out. We practice to the best of our ability simplicity parenting, so we're not a high-tech family with our kids. They don't have iPads, and we really focus on nature as much as possible and being outside with our kids. So I feel like I can get better, but I am pretty mindful of when I'm with them, not focusing on other things.
Yeah.
That's difficult in the summer, though, I will say.
Yeah.
Because, again, we choose to not get help with our kids while we're building business.
Yeah.
And it's not for everybody.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because I think I'm also challenged with it. I chose to work from home, although I do go into the office once or twice a week. But as my wife pointed out, I'm on the computer out by the pool because the kids are swimming. And she's like, yeah, you're out here, but you're not present. And, in my mind, I'm going, well, at least I'm here. I'm not at the office. But there is a lot to be said for being present in the moment as well.
I agree.
So I think I need to be
agree,
better.
And I think that's where it's like there's pros and cons, right? Because when you're in the office, you can structure your time a little bit differently so that when you're at home, you're not working.
Yeah.
Although I meet very few people who, even if they do have an office, aren't working when they're home.
Yeah.
But I do think not being present, that there's a price to pay for that, because I think we do build grief around all that time where, yes, we were there physically, but our brain was focusing on other things, and our kids grew up so quickly. So that's something that I feel is really important for me to, structure a little better, and make sure that, I'm not wandering. And that's something that my husband and I are, practicing. And we're actually studying with a couple of people over the next year to help us with that, because I think that whole mindfulness, being present, meditation, using mindfulness tools to make sure that, you're not always on for business, because entrepreneurship can make you on 24/7.
Yeah.
So we haven't found that perfect balance, and I don't even think it exists, but I think it comes down to when you feel out of alignment, there has to be some changes made.
Well,
so maybe it's like a day where there's like no technology, or I used to do webinars in the evenings at the same time that my kids, close to where my kids were, and it was totally overwhelming my nervous system. So I stopped doing evening webinars, and that has really helped me be more present in the evenings.
I think your point of making 3 goals per day would also help with prioritizing and being present in the moment. Because, for example, if you knocked out those 3 goals early in the day, but you continued working, you knew if you had to step away to focus on your kids or other priorities that you've achieved those goals for the day. So that's something I'm going to focus on. How do you, just some helpful advice, maybe you've gone through this. One thing that I struggle with working from home is I'll get in the middle of a project and, I'm required to be elsewhere at a moment's notice, right? Change a diaper or something. And literally you have to step away from, being in the moment of your work project and then coming back to it. And I've seen for myself, I've had to acquire a skill to be able to step away in a hurry. But any helpful tips for people that are also working from home and how to adjust back and forth between personal and business?
Well, here's a tip that works for my husband and I. My husband also works from home. So yes, we have more hands, but like this morning, his album is launching in a month. So he had a 2-hour phone call that he had to be on. So we kind of look at, okay, who has what during the day, and we try to trade off. That has helped. The other thing that, as a mom, this may be different, but as a mom, I feel like moms with little kids, it takes a toll to be an entrepreneur, let's be honest, when they're young, because our nature is to want to spend all our time with them and to be fully present and nurture, but we're also building business. So we're kind of in these both worlds. And sometimes we can be too much in our male energy and we get overwhelmed. So one of the things that has been helpful for me, and I say this to a lot of the moms I know, especially moms with young kids, don't be afraid to ask for help. One of the things I do is if I'm feeling like I just need like 6 hours to bust out business of all the things that have fallen through the cracks over the last 2 weeks, my husband I'll go to a hotel for the night.
Oh.
And I'll do that. I'll get everything done. And it also gives me a moment to kind of like regroup, give my nerves a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
And that's been so helpful over the last year. So that's something, and I obviously don't take advantage of it. Like I make sure I'm respectful, but I feel like I get so much done because I get to kind of escape to my old world where I had all day and all night to work.
Yeah, sure.
And I just get it all done. I catch up, and then I come home feeling like I had a bit of a reset.
Yeah, we try to do that at my house once in a while. I'll grab the kids and just go down to the park for a couple hours or go get lost at Target because I know, it allows your spouse to recharge a little bit. The problem that I found with that from a business perspective is when I get that clear air, sometimes I just sit there and just enjoy the clear air and I don't want to do anything.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think too, I used to try to do everything when I was doing a catch up, and now it's like, what is the main thing that really needs to get done today?
Yeah.
And also make sure, like, I used to outsource a lot more than I do now. I think there is a good balance of outsourcing what's going to grow your business, but sometimes I think we outsource too many things, and then we think we don't have to worry about it, and then we end up having to fix it all up. So one of the things I do look at is like, okay, where do I not have enough leverage? So if you're building a company and you could hire somebody who's amazing to help you with social media and blogging, who's really great at it and will be able to help you grow your business in a month versus you trying to do it, stressing out and taking 2 years. That's I think those timeouts really allow you to recognize patterns of where don't I have enough leverage. Because again, when you have a home office and when you're raising kids, you can't do everything. And it requires you to be even more disciplined to focus on the things that matter and leverage or outsource or take off the to-do list things that aren't going to grow your business. And so for me, that has been very apparent over the last year. Yes, I can build websites and do social media, but it's not the best use of my time.
Got it. Before we this time went by so fast talking to you. It's just so fascinating to hear all the things that you're about and where you've been. But before we wrap up the interview, first of all, I want to thank Christina over at BuzzBright for bringing you to my attention. She's been wonderful with some of our guests. One of the things she said about you is that you talk about how to live wealthy and WELLthy. Do you want to just touch on that real fast? And I know we've talked a little bit about both so far, but I think it's an important statement.
Yeah, so I think what my passion is, but when I'm mentoring, I really focus a lot of attention on having revenue streams and making your money sort of a metric for health and having the philosophy of as you get healthier,